exciting driver to watch on race game. Look at how close he is to the back of Richard's car.
Mark Skaife, towards the end of his career, was the best driver in the country for sure.
An amazing time, 12.8 seconds earlier in the week.
Mark is a guy who has had an illustrious career.
There he goes again. He's ducked to the inside, squeezed up on the inside, slithers through. Gricey's given him some room, and Mark Skaife through to the lead.
I can remember Mark's first race at Amaroo Park in the Laser.
Mark Skaife looking good at this stage.
Very emotional in a lot of ways.
We led the race all day. I can't believe this. We've won the race. That's how it is.
A great guy, terrific friend, and we got on really, really well together.
Very focused on what he wanted to do, hard to beat, hard to race against.
Crowd standing here in the grandstand as they come across the line, and it'll be Mark Skaife takes the checkered flag clear of Thomas Mazera.
You can't argue with his results. His results are fantastic.
Across the line, it's Mark Skaife to win it from gentleman Jim Richards.
Mark and I were in Russell's old Gemini wagon out the back of Oran Park, sliding this thing around, trying to get used to how we're going to be motor racing stars.
There certainly aren't any team orders as to who runs first and second. They race for it.
Dedicated, and he got the result on the board. He was very, very good at what he did.
Unlikely to be probably repeated.
No, but I think Jimmy and I will take a fair bit of beating from here.
He's a thoroughly great guy to have time with.
People compare Mark Skaife with Peter Brock.
And Mark might learn something out of this afternoon, because Brock will not give him an easy run. Watch horsepower now as young Skaife guns the Nissan down the inside.
I really compare Brock's the Lowndes and Skaife is the Moffat. Mark's got to work very hard at his job, and did work very hard at his job. And when you see the way he's done that in the period of time he's raced, the number of years he's raced, it's typical of Alan Moffat style.
I always knew him as a very fine driver.
Focused, deserves all the success he's got.
Yeah, we've had some terrific times together.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again on the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. We're back at Shannons in Melbourne, surrounded by some wonderful exotic cars, and there's a tremendous amount of automotive memorabilia all around the walls here. It really is a terrific venue to talk about the legends of Australian motorsport. And today we'll have a chat with one of the most celebrated drivers of all time in the history of our business. We're also going to look at one of the most decorated race cars that's ever run on a racing track anywhere in Australia. And as always, Aaron Noonan is going to dig up some great stuff from the Seven Library as well. Our guest today has done it all. He's been an Australian driving champion. He's won at Bathurst 6 times. He's won the Touring Car Championship 5 times. I know him well. Please welcome Mark Skaife. Hello, mate. Hello, welcome. Grab a seat. Thank you very much for spending a moment with us today.
No problem.
Young boy from Wyong makes good, and you really did make good.
Well, young boy from Wyong, I mean, you know, yourself coming from a country town, small place north of Sydney, in between Sydney and Newcastle, growing up, you know, in an automotive business around my dad, going to racetracks with him to start with, and getting an opportunity to drive for the factory Nissan team at an early age was extraordinary, Crompo. I mean, I remember those days vividly, and the you know, the progression, the thing that you sort of start out liking the sport and being around the sport, and to have had some wins and done some good things, it's been a great journey.
Do you remember when you got the bug? Your dad, Russell, was a driver, but at what point did you firmly square on the notion of, I want to be a racing driver?
Look, I think from go-kart days, initially, you know what it's like. You get in and you have a feel for something, whether it's whatever sport it is, rugby league, AFL, car racing, and for me, I played a lot of rugby league. I started go-kart racing, and I felt straight away that I was better at this than the other thing.
So karting was how you got rolling, but it was really in the Ford Laser series where we saw you on the big circuits as a part of, well, New South Wales racing specifically, but on the bigger main stage, as it were.
Yeah, so the Laser series was amazing. So for $9,900, you went and bought a car. For $3,000, you bought a kit to make it into a race car. Dad and I did all the work on it. Barry Seaton ended up doing the engine. We went racing, and it was more money to win a Laser Series race than a Touring Car Championship round. So it was $3,000 for first, $2,000 for second, and $1,000 for third. only series I've ever made real money in those days. And at that point, as you can imagine, every young bloke in Australia trying to get into, touring car racing, had 56 cars for the first race meeting at Amaru Park. There was only 26 spots on the grid. So it was a really good series and pretty wild racing. I learned a lot.
Let's have a look at it.
Skaife, Dane and Williams. Press has been pretty lonely back there in 4th spot since the early stages of the race. The top 3 have had it between them, and nobody's been able to find a way around Mark Skaife.
Comes round now to greet the checkered flag, and Mark Skaife makes it 2 from 2 today in car number 2, the Tyre Town entry winner.
Yes, Gary, it was very good. Peter's obviously a very hard driver to beat at any stage, and we need a little bit of a points break between us so that we've got a bit of a chance for winning the series, yeah.
I think he was giving you a bit of a hurry up there, a little bit of a tap in the boot at 1 or 2 stages, was he? He was pretty anxious.
Oh, well, all's fair. Peter's obviously a very good driver and a very fair driver, so he's very good to race against at any stage.
You've obviously enjoyed this series immensely through this season. Have you given any thoughts at this stage, looking ahead, where you're going to go in motor racing from here?
Obviously, financially, that's the biggest problem as to what you can do for next year, but hopefully we'll either go into a Group E car or a Group A car, depending on what we can come up with funds-wise.
Congratulations on a great victory today, Mark Skaife.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
I'll bet you're thrilled we found that.
I'm very unwrapped you've done that. Could I have done it with a haircut, do you think, at that stage?
Yeah, look, if your dad got stuck into you about the wheels, what was he thinking about your hair?
Exactly. I'm with you.
You spent a lot of time in the early days and were great mates with Glenn Seaton, so it was an important friendship and bond, and kind of you guys went through the early progression of your professional motor racing career together.
Well, Barry and my father were good mates, and so Glenn and I spent a lot of time together, way even before we really started racing. A bit of a weird one for us because as we progressed, we were great friends, and we lived together when we first came down to Melbourne. And we raced hard against each other. There was a lot of competition between us, but also, as it turned out, he was the factory driver in Nissan land. I was aspiring to be. He went off in his own venture. And it was a strange one, Neil, because he ended up in complete blue mode. He was the Ford factory team with Peter Jackson. We were the Holden factory team with Winfield, and the level of sort of ferocity, the will to win, and he was an amazing race car driver. And we've been great mates throughout that whole thing. Never had a bad word.
But we'll sneak off to the first break now, Skaife, and we'll have a look at a little bit more of a sample of you in a Ford Laser, although it's probably not ultimately to your liking.
Coming down, off the dog leg. Here's Skaife on the inside of Dane. Tippity Luba. Yep, straight down the inside. Oh, he's turning into the wall, and around he goes, back across the racetrack. Car's going in every which way and gets hit from behind. Dearie me. Mark Skaife had just pushed straight off the racetrack.
A real buzz down here on the grid. Cars are here in preparation for the final round of the Touring Car Championship. They'll be getting wound up any minute. Strange to see in the 9th and final round of the championship a new face on the grid, replacing George Fury in the number 30 Nissan Skyline today. Mark Skaife. Well, new face, not in motor racing, of course, but a new race in this car. Mark, how do you feel going up against all these guys in the final round of the championship?
Oh, obviously I'm a little bit nervous, Gary, but all I can do is do my best and run my own race and try and keep the car together and do as well as we can.
Okay, best of luck. Mark Skaife in the number 30 Nissan.
Early days, and I think there was 3 cars out there that weekend, wasn't it? And that was really your first genuine main game shot. I know you'd done the 2-litre thing, but that was amongst the big boys, and that was for keeps at that point. Do you remember it?
Oh, I remember it very clearly. I qualified alongside Peter Brock. And man, I bowled up and I went up to the grid. My left leg was shaking so bad. I'm glad they dropped the flag because I would have had to have gone anyway. There was a lot of pressure on at that stage because not only qualifying alongside Brock, but it was my first real crack, and with the guys, it's like you all of a sudden line up alongside Jim Richards and the Stars. It was bloody hard.
So in those days, you were trying to forge a path with Fred. You were doing quite a bit of testing and you were working in and around the workshop, but you're still trying to get some traction personally, weren't you? You're still trying to actually get your hands on a car full-time and get established in the show.
Yeah, and I thought that when Glenn left, that was probably going to be my opportunity, which is the following year. And as it turned out, I mean, it was a difficult time because I thought I was going to get that run, and I thought it was going to be George and I. And Fred decided to get Jim Richards, which inevitably was the best decision. For me, I learnt more from Jim than probably anybody that I've ever driven with. And as a consequence of that decision and having the best driver in the world of the day alongside me, I learnt more, grew more, understood more. It was a tough pill to swallow at that stage. I thought it was going to be my ticket.
So in 1989, I think you did around about half the Touring Car Championship. I don't think you did it all at that point, did you?
No, so my first podium or first proper run in 99 was at Winton in the rain.
Right, all right, well, glad you mentioned it because we've actually got a slice of it here. It was a pretty dirty day. You couldn't really do much offline on that day. Watch Mark here blazing on as he tries his way, or works his way, I should say, to try and grab the lead of the race and also to finish third on the podium that weekend.
George Fury rejoined the race after that tyre change in 4th position. So it's Grice, Skaife, Brock, Fury, then Brad Jones.
There's Freddie having a little think, if nothing else.
There he goes again. He's ducked to the inside. Squeezed up on the inside, slithers through. Gricey's given him some room. And Mark Skaife through to the lead.
Leads a round of the Touring Car Championship, Mark Skaife.
I can recall at the time standing in the paddock at Lakeside on the day and you talking about the personal importance of really coming to terms with racing with Jimmy. You talked about it just a few moments ago. So understanding that Jimmy was the benchmark at that point in time in terms of qualifying and racing, this is one of those race meetings where you don't necessarily win and it doesn't go down in the history books as being some great big hallmark moment, but personally they're big moments, aren't they, for race drivers?
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time. So Lakeside 1990 was the first time that I out-qualified Jim. And, you know, as I said before, I've got the most admiration for Richo. You know, best touring car driver in the world at that point, no doubt. And to out-qualify him and be in front was, for me, it was almost the indication for me, even just personal milestone of, hey, I can definitely do this. And I knew how hard I'd worked, and I knew how difficult it was. It was a big day.
And Aaron's been to the vault, pulled out the appropriate bit of videotape. He can add and tell more of the story.
And what a racetrack that particular race was at. Lakeside, fast and flowing, a real driver's track. Colin Bond ended up winning the round that weekend. But as we go to the break here on Shannons Legends of Motorsport, let's take in a little slice of Jim and Mark fighting for positions 5 and 6.
Here's the two Nissans. Jimmy Richards ahead of Mark Skaife.
Andrew Madigi.
Yep. Everyone's been in this race with a bit of a chance. We had Hansford early, Alan Jones, John Bauer, Dick Johnson up and leading till the pit stop.
Yeah.
Colin Bond up there doing it now. This afternoon because Brock will not give him an easy run to the flag. Uh-oh. Watch horsepower now as young Skaife guns the Nissan down the inside. We'll have to try and outbrake him. Will he what?
He did pass and outbrake them. I think that's...
Now it's going to be interesting to see how far the Nissan is able to pull away from Brock now that he's got ahead of him.
There's our race leader. Everyone expected the car to be under a lot of pressure.
Oh, there's a sight we don't see.
Oops, and he's gone off.
No, something's happened there. Absolutely.
So that was the very first time that we saw the GTR on the racetrack, Mallala, South Australia, about 1 hour north of the city. And do you recall the first time that you strapped this thing on and went for a blaze?
Oh, it was an unbelievable car, Cromper. Jimmy and I drove it at Winton in the rain in the first test day when it first arrived. We first built it. And it was very much a Japanese spec car then, you know, shocking gearbox, massive turbo lag, all the things that were bad. And as it turned out, with the development that sort of took place, the car was getting better and better. We ran it then at Mallala. We qualified third, second row of the grid, got by those two guys, which I think was Bao and Brock. And the car, I remember we were cruising, and then it broke a front hub. So off the road we went.
And that's what happened
there.
Yeah. And you used to do a lot of tyre testing in those days as well. I can recall being at circuits when that was going on. But one of the things that I wanted to lead to, talked about it at the top of the show, was the skill set that you crafted to be able to do very good one-lap qualifying, which of course serves you so well in terms of your race results then. I mean, it's a big key to the weekend and you crafted it beautifully.
Yeah, I always liked the one-lap qualifying thing, and even just qualifying per se, because really it's the only time of the weekend where you genuinely get a chance to drive the car as hard as you can possibly drive it. And to put one lap together is bloody hard. I mean, I've always thought that mindset, the ability to brake the car properly for the first part of the lap, use the tyre as hard as you possibly could. You know, I learnt a huge amount of that from Richo. I mean, I was just staggered how hard you had to drive cars. I mean, when you think about it, it's just a mousetrap that however you need to, you do everything you can possibly do to make that thing go around that lap as fast as you can. And he just drove the wheels off the cars. So when I got my brain around, this is how hard you've got to drive them, then when you put fresh tyres and stuff on them, then you can go to another level. I probably enjoyed that more than anything. I think, especially Bathurst, I mean, to do one unbelievable lap of Bathurst, nothing is better in this sport.
And you did it so well, you know, for so many years, as the record book shows. Bathurst, for example, 5 pole positions. And in fact, here is your first Bathurst pole.
This is where the GTR is so fast coming out of this corner, the cutting. They probably pick up 10 or 15 kilometres an hour on the two-wheel drive cars out of that corner, carry it with them all the way across the top.
258 kilometres an hour up Mountain Straight for Mark Skaife.
Gosh, you could have picked up and carried one or two other competitors.
Total concentration from the youngster.
Screaming down towards Caltech's chase, dancing over the road. Well, it's payday early for Nissan and Gibson Motorsport as Mark Skaife comes across to take the checkered flag.
Mark, a 2 minutes 12.63. You're on pole position for the Tooheys 1000. Must be a fairly proud moment in your career.
Thank you very much, John. It was a pretty good lap. I got a little bit untied in a couple of spots, but that's about as good as we could do.
Well done, mate. Thanks, mate. The other thing about your career, when you look down through the list of achievements, is that you actually did a lot of other stuff that, in many respects, has been overshadowed because of what you've done in sedan racing, V8 supercars and touring cars. But you did successfully Formula Holden, which had various names. You had a dabble in Formula 3000. You had a little taste of a Formula 1 car, a Jordan car. You drove a Group C Nissan sports car. You went back to Le Mans and drove a Lister sports car. So you did quite a number of things. I think there was also a Nissan in the '93 World Touring Car Championship at Monza. So there was quite a lot of other stuff going on. And probably like every other young guy with a helmet, you imagined yourself as a Formula 1 star at some stage.
Well, I did. I mean, Fred and I worked very hard in that sort of 91, 92, 93 phase of doing a lot of European racing. And Fred was very supportive of me going down that path. We put a lot of money into the Formula 3000 program. You know, when I did that World Cup thing for Nissan at Monza, that was a fantastic thing to do. It was like being in the middle of a Havoc video. There's more crashing and bashing I've ever seen in my life. But it was a time frame where I hadn't really made up my mind where I was going to stay in Australia or not. And really, as it worked out, it was more about the financials of having a proper career in Australia versus a massive risk on the other side of the world.
Regrets in that term?
Yeah, I mean, Lowndes and I probably did a similar thing. We both did the Formula 3000 thing under Formula 1. And you need to be there a couple of years, Crompo. You got to know where to stay, even just the communication with teams. I found that very hard. And if you're going to apply yourself to it, which is a great credit to Mark Webber. I mean, what he did to grind away to stay there was extraordinary. Hard days.
Do you remember what you can't do in a Formula Holden?
You can't get over the top of the hill at Sandown flat. Or is that your crash or my crash?
No. I'll rephrase. What can't you do in a Formula Holden at Winton?
You can't get around the Sweeper flat, Neil. You dudded me, I tried it, I speared off. But
here's his car, all glued together nicely and Mark driving it handsomely. Watch this.
Mark Skaife, we already mentioned prior to the break, driving for the Nissan team. I think the whole idea of Mark doing some open-wheeler racing is that the Japanese are always very impressed with open-wheeler drivers. And Mark started with the tin tops, and if he can get some good open-wheeler experience, I'm quite sure how many doors that might open.
Because everybody knew you were so fast, everyone's expecting you to go out and do what you've done so far, but knowing that all that pressure was on you must have been hard to live up to.
Yeah, there was lots of pressure, but you know, the team's done a fantastic job this year. Not just today; they've done a good job all year, and you know, the preparation of the cars has been fantastic.
You sound like you're about 15 there.
I was about 15, and didn't notice I had a haircut by that stage. Obviously, Fred decided you got to tidy up.
You had tidied up big time. So that was a very important moment for you. So that was with Jimmy, first win at Bathurst in 1991. You reversed the tables in terms of the Touring Car Championship the following year because you chased him hard in 91 in the ATCC, but you didn't quite get the job done. But it was a very important turning point for you, I reckon, in that period as a race driver.
Yeah, and as I said before, you know, I learnt so much from him in that time. I mean, we're 20 years apart, but we could be brothers. I learnt plenty of beer drinking stories too, I'll give you two.
Well, that was actually, I mean, on that subject, yeah. I used to find it funny because there was enormous pressure during the day to qualify and to race, and you guys, not just, you know, you and Richo and the guys within the Gibson Motorsport team, but you know, everybody all around you, very intense, and the rest of the paddock was. So it was, make no mistake, it was for sheep stations back then as well. But then this bloke and Richo and his mad boss used to, there was a point in the night, 6 o'clock, whatever, it's time for beers, and everybody else would be stressing, but you guys managed to somehow find a way to just pop the circuit breaker and have some fun.
Well, that's what it was about. And you know, I still think, even in professional sport now, it's so intense that the reality of having the balance is really important. And it's not like you have, 14 beers and can't drive the next day. It's, we'd have a beer.
Oh, it was war stories, wasn't it?
We'd have a laugh and a joke. We'd talk about what the car was like. Often that rapport brought more of that out than anything else.
92 was special though. Touring Car Championship victory, Bathurst, which has been detailed, but hidden in there is a little gem called the Australian Drivers' Championship, which goes to the Formula Holden stuff that we were talking about before. That's pretty special in a year to put together a major series victory, a major Bathurst win, and at the time it was pretty competitive too, a Gold Star, which was Australia's leading open wheel championship at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the Oran Park race meeting, which was basically to win the Touring Car Championship and to win the Australian Drivers' Championship, was on the same day. So you're driving both cars on the same day.
And slightly different.
Yeah, and to win both on that day, I know with Freddie Gibson, that was probably one of our best days of all time, where we, were able to win both those series. It was quite emotional when you think about trying to win both those on the same day.
I think especially with the passage of time, when you can look back at these things later on. Anyway, let's look back now. 4 Touring Car Championship round wins for Mark in 1992.
As they swing on the way to the checkered flag, and it's about to come up. A 1-2 for the Winfield Nissan team across the line. Mark Skaife. Round 4 at Winton. The Nissans for Winfield strike across the line. It's Mark Skaife to win it from gentleman Jim Richards. Crowd already to its feet to acknowledge and to salute Mark Skaife, the 92 Shell Australian Touring Car Champion. Second spot goes to Jimmy Richards in a form finish across the line.
Congratulations. I'd like to draw everybody's attention now also to the Shannons Club. Why not join today? It's really easy, it's free, you jump online, fill out the detail. It was a huge year, and it also culminated in that messy win at Bathurst. But everybody remembers that event for what it was at the end of it, but it was still a very hard race up to that point. In fact, I reckon that was probably one of the toughest days at the wheel for you or anybody in motor racing.
Well, that's probably why it was so emotional. It wasn't necessarily about the result. It was about how wild it was. Denny Holm, the 1967 world champion, died that day. It was unbelievably wild. At 280 kilometres an hour, you couldn't see 2 or 3 car lengths in front of you. And as it was, Jim just got caught on slick tyres, and at a point where it wouldn't have mattered what happened, you just couldn't drive the car when it was like that. And Bathurst, the rain is so torrential and the water runs off the mountain so heavily that it basically just swept the car away. I thought it was all over and out, and as it turned out, we were credited with the win.
Let's have a little bit of a look now at the 1992 Bathurst 1000.
I guess the big question's been, what will Freddie Gibson's team do, given that the turbo era ends on the 31st of December of this year?
It's only got 2 ways to jump.
And I believe it will probably be in favour of the General. Great Nissan race cam. An idea of Mark. We pan it around as he comes over the top of the mountain, heading down towards Skyline. cast of 93 is most impressive.
Hope you enjoy the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship, the 5-litre heat from Sydney's Amaroo Park. And Thomas Mazira gets off the line. Johnson is sideways. Skaife goes up the inside route. We'll try and separate them before they make it to the top of the hill. And John Bower on the outside getting the crunch up to the top of the hill. Listen to the crowd as they dive now into Dunlop Loop. And here they come. Mazira's gone wide. Johnson now up on the inside. Skaife moves to second. Well, they said this formula was looking back into the future. Don't you believe it? Last corner is coming up. The crowd are standing as one as Dick Johnson of Queensland wins the first 5-litre heat. The V8s are back. Second spot goes to the Commodore of Mark Skaife.
So an all-new era in Australian motorsport, V8s. We first saw cars at the Sandown 500 September 1992. There were 4 of them. Glenn Seaton had 2. The Holden Racing team had 2. That was the first championship round, which meant a wholesale change for you and all of those around you, from Nissan to Holden. And to begin with, I'm sure you weren't that thrilled with the whole notion of having to detach yourself from Nissan.
Well, you know, we had a great relationship with Nissan. I mean, our rapport was just fantastic, and we obviously had a factory relationship with them for a long time. So that was hard to swallow. The second thing was, who would we go with? Heard Mike Raymond there making reference in the Nissan lap. Would we go Ford or Holden? And with Fred's previous Ford contacts, and all of the Rothmans' fleet was with Ford of the day. So there was a big discussion that we had internally of which way would we go. We ended up going with Holden and TWR, and we went and met with both parties. Popping out at the end of that, obviously the decision to go to Holden, and for me it was a time, Croppo, where we had to turn the business so quickly. I mean, we talk about now, you know, teams changing cars over the off-season or whatever. This was a complete change of everything. There wasn't one single thing we owned that would fit on these other things. So it was, all that was yesterday's newspaper. The Holden program was completely new. We went and just bought stuff. I mean, you know, Fred was remarkable in that we spent every dollar we could spend on making sure we had the right package.
Well, let's have a look at some of the early material. I think this is from Symonds Plains, Tasmania, very early in the championship.
We'll keep an eye on Gardner here. Watch this. Crompton's keeping Skaife down the inside. Gardner straight down the outside. Knew that wouldn't happen.
Oh, look at Skaife's car screwing under brakes. Richards, oh, it's so tight. Crompton gets caught in the Winfield sandwich. His spoilers come loose. They're not afraid to lean on each other, these blokes.
Some great close racing there, Skaife, and I have to say that Aaron Noonan is the purveyor of all the videotape material, and there's a reason that we're leading you to Tasmania, aren't we, Aaron?
And Neil, this is one of my favourite pieces of tape from Mark Skaife's racing career. Symonds Plains, as you mentioned, a little bit of a run-in with Alan Jones on the track, but it's when they got off track back in the pits, that's when it got a little bit spicy.
2-litre cars just being lapped there. That's 7 laps after the start, to give you some idea of how quickly the V8s are rounded up the 2-litre cars. Oh, Alan Jones gives more than a little tap.
Get out of the way. Get out of the way.
That was a savage one. That was Parnelli Jones type driving. One tap.
I was as straight as a die. You drove straight to that car and turned me around. Really? Yeah, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Mate, the next time that I'm behind you, I'll turn you around. Is that right? I've been around long. Yeah, well, that might be the right. It's been another week.
There was an awful lot of audio tone in there.
That's pretty wild. Well, I mean, I didn't care whether he was the Formula 1 world champion or whatever. At that stage, he turned me around and I was going to bowl up and get into him. And Fred didn't think it was that great, but I got a lot of satisfaction from it.
But we loved it, mate. We're not in race control. We don't actually care anymore, but we just love the fact that there's a bit of fun there, there's a bit of colour. I also want to talk about what I believe to be one of the great races, and it was 1993 at Bathurst. You and Richo in Fred's car, battling Larry in the Castrol car. It's one of those that you don't win, but there's a victory in another sense because it's such an honest drive.
Yeah, it was a great battle. It was the closest finish in history at that time. And it had been going all day. And it was a wet, dry day and everything had sort of transpired. Jimmy was in the car at the end in the rain, and it dried up, and he got forced down onto the wet line and had to go down the escape road, which effectively cost us the race at that stage. And it wasn't Jim's fault, it was actually a lap car. So it was one of those ones, as you said, that we didn't win, but we probably deserved to win on that day. And I'll always remember Richo said to all the team at the end in the garage that he said he thought that was my best drive that he'd seen.
Oh, it was a great race and real intensity. Let's enjoy some of it now.
Gardner very impressive about qualifying. Now look at Skaife. He's coming down the inside of Larry Perkins under brakes, and Skaife wants to lead this thing. There's no doubt about it. He's in a big hurry.
Certainly is, and Larry will let him lead for a while and sit in the draft as they reel one more off. And the Mark Skaife fans all jump up along the straight.
And look at the times, 2:15.5 on their third flying lap.
The things that many people wouldn't know about Mark is that when he's away from the camera and away from the racetrack, he's a thoroughly great guy to have time with, and yeah, we've had some terrific times together.
In the period of time he's raced, the number of years he's raced, it's typical of Alan Moffat style, where you look at sort of the Brock style is the Lowndes style, happy-go-lucky, sort of comes naturally sort of thing and still gets the result.
I've got a lot of stories about Mark that he would never want me to bring up, I tell you, because we spent a hell of a lot of time together over the years before we both went motor racing, to be honest, because our dads were very close and good friends of each other, and whenever our dads were racing at Oran Parks or Amaroos and places like that before we were racing, we were out the back paddocks usually in Russell's, one of Russell's cars or one of my dad's cars.
Always an angry young bloke, but he could obviously drive.
He was a no-nonsense guy, and he, as I said earlier, he didn't mind having an opinion, which I like in a guy, and didn't necessarily line up with mine.
Mark and I were in Russell's old Gemini wagon out the back of Oran Park, sliding this thing around, trying to get used to how we're going to be motor racing stars.
It's interesting to listen to your peers make comment, isn't it? These are guys that you worked with, raced hard against, had some fearsome battles with. What are your thoughts? What's your reaction?
Yeah, look, I've been blessed with a period where I drove against a really diverse level of the best drivers. If you think about, you know, the Grice, the Bond, the Brock, the Johnson, the Richards, right through to then the Glenn Seatons, guys like yourself, through to the Craig Lowndes factor of today, and even having the run, you know, against Whincup and Van Giersbergen and those guys that are running now. I've been really fortunate to have driven at a time when those guys have been at their very best, and for me that's a very special part of how you remember your performances, because you know what it's like. If you're playing B grade something, then it doesn't really matter too much. No. But if you are having a serious crack at the best race drivers, the reaction then is important, because you actually want to finish those things with a relationship and with a respect that's real.
So continuing in the timeline of the 7 Volt here, so 1994, and again another touring car championship, 4 wins, Amaroo Park, Sandown, Tasmania and Malala. This time you actually beat Glenn home by a reasonable margin, so that was a pretty solid turnaround, wasn't it? Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and as you said, you know, from the first year we only had 1 year effectively with a Holden before we won the championship. And that was the first time that Holden had won the championship in 14 years, since Brock won it in 1980. Big moment for Holden, and that was a great time then for us, because that really established my link with Holden and the nice relationship that, you know, I was fortunate enough to have for a long time.
Here it is. Let's have a look at the bundle of wins.
They come down as Mark Skaife now, and car number 2 coming down the front straight away, takes the checkered flag. In the meantime, the last set of corners comes up for Mark Skaife. Headlights ablaze, and here he comes. He's been out of sorts the last couple of rounds. Bad luck has played, but today in the sun and in the wet, Mark Skaife wins at Malala Raceway.
It looks as though Thomas is not going to be able to get past Mark in the closing stages of this.
Here it comes! No, here it is! As I said it! Yes, absolutely, coming out of the last corner. Who's got the speed for the checker? I think it's going to be Skaife. Crowd standing here in the grandstand as they come across the line, and it'll be Mark Skaife.
Good stuff. But there were clouds on the horizon for a couple of reasons. You found yourself in a position as you got a little further down the road where you probably didn't have the best tyre in the category at the time, and then ultimately you were losing a major sponsor as well, and the tobacco was disappearing off the car. So this is a major challenge. So you've gone through a manufacturer change not so long ago, you're having a few issues with tyres, and now the money's about to dry up. That makes for a tough equation.
Oh, it was, and that period of time when the government legislation come in, you know, for us, and what also happened, what people didn't really understand was that if you had a cigarette company on your car, you had no one else with you. It was your total lifeline. Because no one wanted to be on a car like that. So when FAI and Shell were on Dick Johnson's Falcons and Telecom and Mobil were on the HRT cars, they had budgets similar to ours, but they had quite diverse commercial arrangements. So when our Winfield money escaped, that was it. And, you know, we ended up with a white Commodore.
Well, which is, in fact, behind us, and for a while there, the car was plain and you had a variety of different labels on it. In fact, I'd like to thank Milton Seferis, who's gone to a huge amount of trouble to bring the car here today. Please give him a round of applause to make sure that we were able to have this car. But tough days, but you know, tide goes out and comes in again in life, and ultimately it did come back for you because you ended up at the Holden Racing team.
Yeah, I mean, I was with Gibson Motorsport for a long time, and that relationship with Fred was fantastic. So that was a very hard decision to make, and I probably could have gone to HRT 2 or 3 times prior to that. Brock's retirement was coming up. John Crennan spoke to me. I had to go and sit down with Fred and said, mate, I've been made this offer, I've got an opportunity. I've had a discussion with John Crennan, and it was effectively to take over from Brock, which inevitably, you know, proved to be a wise choice, but a very hard one, Neil. I mean, you walk in, you know, Fred was father-like for me, and you know, to walk in and have that discussion and say, mate, I'm going to leave you, was pretty hard.
So the relationship, though, with the Holden Racing team, which much of it sadly is outside the 7 Volt, but it led to Touring Car Championship titles in 2000, 2001, 2002. It's the period that Mark Larkham and I joke about, where we all had Skaife-itis. There was an awful lot of winning going on. Bathurst victories in 2002 and 2005, and a subsequent one for Red Bull as well. So remarkable period of success, and you re-energised and re-fired yourself into a whole new chapter of basically turning things to gold.
It was a strange period because coming into the team, there was a lot of ex-Gibson Motorsport people that were then at Holden Racing Team, and a lot of that wasn't probably the best rapport for me, because a lot of those guys I had either didn't want them to work for me or they left, which was a bit ugly. Then after going to that team, it was in some ways refreshing because I was pretty much running the team with Fred in the Gibson era. I went to HRT with my helmet, and I'd walk in and chuck my helmet in and go and drive the car. So I've become more of a professional race driver again, and the era that unfolded with Lowndes was extraordinary in terms of competition. It was very much Richo-like, you know, in terms of how much we wanted to beat each other. And that level of competition drove the team to the heights that it achieved. And for me, that was probably, you know, a period of my career where I enjoyed just the purity of going racing. It was great.
And within that period, there's a car in particular that's decorated like almost no other in Australian Touring Car Championship and V8 Supercar racing. And I'm very pleased to say it is in fact Mark's car, and it's here today behind us, and Mark Osler is going to have a look at it for us right now.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, it seems every famous and successful race driver has some car from their past that they have a soft spot for, and this is Mark Skaife's Holden Racing Team's V8 Commodore Supercar Chassis 045. The team nicknamed it the Golden Child, and there was good reason for that, because it played a central role in delivering 2 V8 Supercar Championships, 2 Bathurst 1000 victories, and numerous other race wins in 2 remarkable seasons in 2001 and 2002. A lot of 2s. By that stage, the Holden Racing Team, the factory Holden team, had virtually perfected the process in building a winning V8 supercar, and this car embodied all that expertise. 600 horsepower, fuel-injected Chevrolet V8 engine under the bonnet, the Australian-made Hollinger 6-speed gearbox, a multi-link live rear axle, Big brakes, big aero, a V8 supercar in every sense of the word. You know, a lot of great memories with this car. The one that really sticks in my mind, though, was Bathurst in 2002. Very windy conditions, a lot of plastic bags blowing around. A whole lot of them got sucked into the radiator intake on this car. And amazingly, it hung on. The oil temperature was off the clock. The coolant temperature was off the clock. Everyone said the car wasn't going to go more than one lap, but it hung on and gave Skaife that victory. You know, this is clearly a very special car in what was a very special career for Mark Skaife.
Well done. A special car for you too, I'm sure.
Oh, it was an unbelievable car to have won those races, and that's why it got the nickname the Golden Child, because the boys knew don't do anything bad to that car. It was always pristine. That race, for instance, at Bathurst, you know, that you guys were put out with a similar thing, you and Craig Lowndes, and I remember very clearly that late in the race, two major things. The temperature was going mad, and we used to be able to just click the dash to cancel so it would cancel the number. Yeah. And it got to 114 degrees, and the next one was 117, and it come up 117, and I thought, oh, this is getting bad, and I clicked it off. And they're all yabbering in the background, talking to me about whether we're going to come in or not. There was just no way I was coming in, right? And it's the biggest race in the country. And at that stage, we're short shifting, doing all the stuff, able to get it home, and I just said to the boys, no more chat. There's no more chat on the radio. Do not talk to me at all, because we need to get this thing home.
I'm going to get it home, or I'm going to weld it up.
Stop.
That's right. Yeah. Mate, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's been fun to go through this. There's so much more to the story, but sadly we don't have time, nor do we have some of the videotape, but it's been great to have a few moments with you. Please thank Mark Skaife. Thanks, Skaife. It's been a pleasure once again. Hope you've enjoyed the program. Look forward to your company again very soon for another episode of the Shannons Legends of Motorsport.
There's your number one man at the moment, his car 44, Colin Bonds Holden.
Fantastic, naturally gifted race car driver.
This is only third lap, and already it is neck and neck.
And he's done it to 20.87, so he's beaten Moffat.
A fantastic bloke. You'd hear a huge laugh in the pit area somewhere, and Bondi was always in the middle of that.
I just thought he was a great, flamboyant superstar race driver.
Mark Skaife makes it 2 from 2 today in car number 2. Squeezed up on the inside, slithers through.